CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy. After 2 years and more than 80 episodes of our Conversations on African Philanthropy, we are introducing a series of conversations that are theme-specific, program-focused, and at times recorded at the request of those at the coalface of implementation in order to document and tell their experiences and stories. In the first of such series, we focus on the Zimbabwe Alliance Initiative, whose grants, convenings, capacity building, and technical support have fostered a vibrant civil society, where partners were empowered to design innovative and coordinated responses that amplify the voices of those marginalized, influence the capacity of citizens to mobilize around national critical issues, engage with policymakers, and built regional and international solidarity in pursuit of a better Zimbabwe. Formed in 2010 to strengthen the role of civil society in influencing Zimbabwe's transition to democracy, the Alliance has evolved over several phases to what it is today. An initiative of several partners, Zimbabwe Alliance is a story of resilience, innovation, dedication, and passion expressed somewhat beautifully in some of the least expected places and ways.
Welcome to a special initiative focusing on the ZimAlliance, Zimbabwe Alliance project under the Trust Africa banner. My name is Moyo. Welcome to the Conversations on African Philanthropy. I'm excited this afternoon to be joined by Samuel Mangoma, who is the Executive Director of VISET. We'll talk more about this long name. Welcome to the conversation, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for gracing us at your beautiful place. I was talking earlier about my observation that most houses in this place seem to be headquarters or offices for NGOs, and we're talking about some of the probably existential challenges that NGOs face when it comes to issues like accommodation, office space. Maybe we can start on a lighter note around why you think most NGOs are located here.
All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's because of the proximity to the central business district of Harare, and also the fact that if you are to get offices in the central business district, you have to part away with a lot of money. The parking fees, they're just exorbitant, and a lot of organizations will not be able to meet those. And it's close to town. If you decide to walk your way to the offices, it's possible. So that's why you find that a lot of houses here have been turned into offices. Very few are residential places. Basically that's the reason.
Can we talk about the Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation? What do you do? What led to its emergence? How old is it, and what's the central mandate of the organization?
Okay, so VISET is a union of informal economy workers, your street vendors, your cross-border traders, your domestic workers, your small, basically broadly your small to medium enterprises. The organization was formed in 2015 as a response, obviously, to the high levels of informality that we are experiencing as a country. Very limited opportunities in the formal job market, and the majority of young people that are being churned out of universities and colleges are joining the informal sector, as a way of trying to survive. The majority are street vendors, your market vendors, and cross-border traders. So VISET was formed really to create that platform for solidarity. I think when the organization was formed in 2015, there were a lot of abuses that were happening to especially street vendors, and that explains the name Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation, because we wanted to create a platform to be able to defend and protect our rights in the face of the violations that we're facing. It was also a platform to engage with authorities then who were viewing vendors as criminals, whereas vendors were trying to make a living, to survive in under very difficult circumstances. We're a membership-based organization with the structures throughout Zimbabwe, throughout all the 10 provinces of Zimbabwe. Our current database, we are at almost 68,000 members throughout the country. But in 2019, as part and parcel of our expansion program, we established a chapter in Namibia.
Okay.
So we have got a VISET Namibia chapter that is fully functional right now. It have got its own board of directors, though I also sit there as one of the founding trustees there. Plans are also at an advanced stage to set a similar chapter in the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Yeah.
So basically that's who we are.
Yeah. So your membership type, is it both individual and associations, or strictly individual?
No, and associations. We actually have got associations, town-based associations like Gweru Vendors Association, Gweru Mutare Vendors, and so on, other towns.
So I'm trying to make sense of the 68,000. Is it 68,000 made up of associations, or is 68,000 made of individuals and associations?
Individuals and associations.
And associations, okay,
yes,
great.
Yes. But the 68,000, we are talking about individuals.
Individuals, okay.
Who are part of
associations.
Yes, of different associations that are affiliated to VISET.
Correct. So this initiative, the Zimbabwe Alliance that we are here for, was born, at the height of the Zimbabwe crisis. 2008, 2009, and it started doing grant making around 2011. But the economic and political situation at the time called for initiatives that could support the strengthening of civil society. You are born around 2015. Obviously, part of it being the remnants of that 2008-2009 crisis, which has not really been fully resolved. Just a few weeks ago, the Zimbabwean currency, the ZiG, was devalued. And my understanding is that the implications of that devaluation is that there is a lot of informalization now that is happening. Big shops are likely to start closing because people are moving to the informal sector even more. In terms of where you are sitting as an organization, what's your immediate reaction to these currency reforms that keep on, in a way, pushing everyone to the informal sector? Or is this an issue for you as an organization, or this really does not?
No, it's a big issue actually, because for us to be able to thrive in the informal economy, we need consistency in terms of how the government is managing the economy. There are a lot of changes that are happening, and sometimes you are caught unaware. So it affects everyone, including players in the informal economy. The devaluation, it's a big issue here. We do a lot of exchanging. A lot of the products, the merchandise that we sell, we get them from other countries. And if we don't have a strong currency, a recognized currency, it's a big challenge to us. And I think the major challenge has been the inability of the central government to engage, and to ensure that if the policies are being changed, key players are also part and parcel of the discussions. So we are not even sure if the ZiG will be there tomorrow. There are indications that probably they want to do away with the current status and remove the US dollar. We are not so sure if that is going to happen. But all these inconsistencies do affect us in a big way as an organization, because we depend on clear policies that are supported by facts on the ground. So the ILO statistics usually suggest that 80% of most of Africa's population is in the informal sector. And I just don't know how that could be used as a big opportunity for institutions like yourselves. That 80% of Africa's population is actually in the informal sector. In other words, it means that's the formal sector in a way. So how do you position yourselves for sustainable future?
as an organization? Are there any debates and any conversations around how to take advantage of this big number of people who are labeled to be in the informal sector, and yet they are the ones who are actually helping to keep the economies afloat?
A very important question. So there are a lot of countries that have managed to come out of difficult economic situations by embracing the informal economy. We are not the only country, Zimbabwe, that has gone through these high levels of informality. There are other countries, Bolivia is going through a very almost similar situation as ours. But I think the big question is how the government and the state is going to respond to that. There are a lot of opportunities. We talk about the formalization of the informal economy. There are a lot of benefits to the government, and in the same way we expect the same from our perspective to see benefits accruing from the formalization of the informal economy. But unfortunately, most African countries do not realize that there are a lot of opportunities that can be tapped from there. What happens is the violations, the arrest, the confiscation, lack of support in terms of how the budgets are constructed. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of research, to help our policymakers to understand that informality is not a bad thing, but if properly harnessed, if properly managed, can actually be a key vehicle for economic and social transformation of the lives of our people. Zimbabwe is a signatory to a key recommendation that was adopted by the International Labour Organization, Recommendation 204 of 2015, which talks about the transitioning from informality to formality. But the challenge that we have been facing is that the government have got a very narrow, in fact, African governments have got a very narrow appreciation of informality and of formalization. Sorry, they view formalization as just the collection of taxes, collection of money from workers in the informal economy. But formalization is broader than that. We are talking about issues to do with the infrastructure development, social protection. We also saw what happened during COVID-19. The majority of workers in the informal economy were left exposed because the governments did not have systems to support this vulnerable segment of our economy during times of crisis. So formalization also speaks about the creation of inclusive social protection systems that are able to absorb the shocks that may be, that may come as a result of a crisis like what we witnessed during COVID-19.
So I think that what we just heard is a good contextualization of the work that VISET does. So maybe we can talk a bit about some of your key pillars of the work that you do, the programs that you're engaged in, and how, in ways are responding to some of these issues that you are raising.
Okay, obviously key among the work that we are doing is the issue of creating spaces of engagement with the government. I mentioned that VISET was formed as a response to the abuses that were happening back then to, in particular, street vendors. So VISET became a solidarity platform, assisting vendors that who have been arrested, recovering goods that we have been confiscated arbitrarily by local authorities. But besides that, we've also been doing programs around building the capacities of traders to grow their businesses and become entrepreneurs and probably become employers, in the face of high levels of unemployment in our country. We also run programs on entrepreneurship training for young people that are being churned out of universities and colleges. Actually, we've got a department, an arm called Graduate Vendors platform, where we embrace young people that are joining the informal economy coming from universities and
Yeah.
colleges.
Yeah.
You know, so this platform is for information sharing, ideas sharing, and just to embrace them in the informal economy. We also have got what is called Informal Economy Women's Hub, and this is a hub that champions the cause of women that are working in the informal economy. And I think, as we may be aware, women are the majority of players in the informal economy. So that particular hub is there to support initiatives by women in the informal economy.
Yeah.
We also do work around the governance of the informal sector itself, because we believe that the way that the sector is being governed right now is not democratic, is not inclusive, and does not create spaces for players to grow and contribute to the development of the economy. We have done a lot of work around climate change. You know, climate change is affecting everyone, including workers in the informal economy. So we've done work to respond to, like, Chimanimani. We did some programs there after the cyclone. We've done adaptation work, mitigation work, and supporting our members. We have also participated in democracy and governance processes, because in Zimbabwe, ILO estimates that over 90% of the population is surviving in the informal economy, and we felt that interacting with such a huge population, it's important that we encourage people to participate in governance processes, including going out to vote, mobilizing people to go and register to vote, because we believe that if we want to see change, if you want to see improvement of how we are working, we also need to participate in terms of how the kind of leaders that we are will be selecting. So those are some of the initiatives that.
So what would you say currently are the challenges that VISET faces, and in addition to that, what would be some of the key successes that you want to highlight?
Okay, so the challenge is obviously just like any other organization. I think the moves by the government to, though the bill has not been actualized, but there are moves by the government to close the operating space. That's the phrase now.
So
close the operating space
for vendors or for associations and civil society generally.
For civil society, broadly,
yeah.
But also it affects our interventions. You know. So, for example, if you want to do a meeting, there's a project that we are running in Goromons, that is Mashonaland East. If you want to organize a meeting, you can't proceed without notifying the district officers, government, state departments. And my personal view is that it's okay to update the authorities, but you should not prevent an intervention from being implemented because you have not been updated on what you want to achieve. Allow organizations to implement. Then if they are doing it in a way that is violating our laws, then you can then hold them to account. So I think there are indications that the government wants to interfere in the operations of NGOs, and that's very unfortunate. But from the perspective of our members, I think one of the key challenges is the issue of lack of access to markets, and I'm talking about the physical markets. Despite the fact that revenue is being collected on a daily basis, we have not seen efforts to construct modern markets, markets that allow players in the informal economy to grow. People are still working in open markets, open spaces, without water, without all the relevant ablution facilities. Then the issue of corruption in the allocation of spaces. Where there are spaces, there's a lot of corruption. You cannot find a space if you are not linked to key players in some political parties. You have to be linked to certain political parties for you to be able to access proper markets. Then the issues of the bylaws that are being used at the moment, they are archaic. They are no longer in sync with the economic realities that we are living in. For example, Harare bylaws, they are still criminalizing street vending in some parts of the town. I don't think that should be, we should accept that, given the fact that the majority of the people are surviving through the informal sector. And then the issues of the arrests that I talked about, confiscation of wares. Sometimes if goods are confiscated, you never recover them. Then where they have been, been placed, it's a huge issue to us. Then obviously the issue of support from the government. If you look at how the budget is crafted, it's not responding to the fact that we've got 90% of the population surviving in the informal sector. There are no clear plans to support the informal economy with the funds that are needed to transform their livelihoods. NDS1, that is the government's blueprint, talks about supporting the process of the formalization of the informal economy. But on one hand, when the Minister of Finance presents the budget, there is no allocation whatsoever in terms of the funds to support that important process. So I think we also, though the government has started talking about supporting the informal sector, we are not seeing anything tangible, anything practical in terms of achieving the same.
And then notable successes or notable milestones since your formation in 2015?
A lot. I've talked about expanding to other countries. My vision is to have a movement of informal economy workers across Africa. And I hope that this vision will be met before I leave VISET. We have scored a lot of successes, including the changing of some policies. For example, in Bulawayo, we through the work that we've done with other players there, we have seen the Bulawayo City Council changing the bylaws. And this was directly in relation to the work that we're doing with our other colleagues in Bulawayo. Though other local authorities remain rigid, but you can see a lot of movement. In Masvingo, again, we saw a lot changing there, even in terms of the allocation of markets. The process now has improved significantly. The issue of the general organization of workers in the informal economy. We used not to have organizations that can speak, authoritatively on behalf of players in the informal economy. And VISET is created that space. Then the issue of engagement, I think that's the key one. We used not to have platforms of engagement with local authorities. That's why we had a lot of running battles, arrests, and other things. It's because there were no platforms of engagement, and VISET managed to create these platforms. Our relationship with the local authorities, we now have what we call informal economy working groups that we created in Harare, in Bulawayo, in Masvingo, in Mutare, and we are in the process of creating the same across the country. And what's the purpose of those? They are there to ensure that we solve the problems together. And these working groups are made up of all the key players in the informal economy ecosystem, including government, police, elected officials, members of parliament, and others. And it was through the work that we're doing as VISET. We have also developed the alternative policies that we have shared with the local authorities to say, look guys, other countries have managed to do it this way. That was through the research that we've conducted. Other countries have managed to do it. Can you try this? And we've seen a lot of movement. Harare City Council, for example, 2 years ago, they adopted a policy which we were part and parcel of in terms of its development. Actually, the document actually recognized VISET as a key player in the formulation of that draft policy. In terms of implementation, the fights that are going on at our City Council, some of the people that were involved in the process were later then recalled and so on. But that's a discussion for another day. But we assisted the institution to have that draft policy, which, if implemented, I know can go a long way in changing the lives of the people.
So we are lucky that in this conversation we are joined by Tendai Murisa, who I think at the time when you were established, he was at the helm of Trust Africa. But even before then, he had also done a book on Zimbabwe's crisis. So I wonder whether Tendai, before we move into the ZimAlliance specific initiative, there are any questions contextually that you want to ask Sam.
Yeah, thanks so much. In terms of sort of the programming work you have done, and how is it affecting your members? Do you think that since 2015, when you were established up until now, where are the members? Are they better off? Are they worse off? Are the testimonies about the work of VISET?
Yes, thank you. Very important question. Their testimonies. I talked about lack of infrastructure as one of the major challenges that the informal sector is facing, and that through the work that we've been doing, we've managed to assist local authorities to build more markets, or at least to renovate markets. I remember during COVID-19, there was an opportunity to renovate a market when all the markets were closed. During the lockdown phase, there was an opportunity to renovate a market in Highfields, and through another partner that came on board, we managed to assist in the renovation of Lusaka market, and now it's one of the best markets in town. We have managed to create platforms where our members can get access to finance. It's one key challenge that our members have continue to face, and through the work that we've been doing with some microfinance institutions, we have a group of about almost 20 now of our members here in Harare alone. We have managed to get some funds, backed by us as an organization, and managed to grow their businesses. We've done a lot of trainings to young people who are coming out from universities and colleges, and some of them, they've gone on to be very successful players in the informal economy, creating employment and so on. We've also managed to create platforms where our members can engage with the local authorities on their own, using the local structures that we've created as an organization. Because I believe we've managed to build a movement that can respond to the issues that are happening on the ground. So our members are now better placed to respond, to go and make inquiries on their own. But most importantly, I think we've managed to unify all the critical voices in the informal economy here in Zimbabwe. So we've built a network of about 7 key organizations in the informal economy ecosystem, and I will name them: the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Association, ZICHIA, Blaue Vendors and Traders Association, WABAZ, that's Women in Business Alliance, then Zimbabwe Cross-Border Traders Association. So we used it to work in silos. And through the initiative that I pushed personally as the director of VISET, we managed to unite. And all the processes that we are doing now with all the key players in the informal economy ecosystem, we will be together. There is no meeting that can be called by the government right now, and you see ZICHIA alone. VISET will be there, BVTA will be there if the opportunity permits. So I can say we have united the voice, which is very important in ensuring that you get the change that you want to see.
So I think this provides a very good way for us to then narrow our conversation on one of the supports that you get from Trust Africa. So obviously you get support from other development partners. But how much of what you have said would you link back to the support that you have received from Trust Africa? I think according to the records that we just discussed, you started receiving support from around 2017
Yes.
till today. You have about 3 grants that you have received. So how much of what you have just described can link back to Trust Africa? And then if there are specifics that you want to talk to, especially from grant number 1, number 2, number 3.
Okay. Yeah, so, I always say this to your current programs director, Mr. Bomba.
Yeah.
I always tell him that the grant that we received, it was the second grant that VISET received since inception. The grant that we received from Trust Africa back then shaped who we are as an organization. And then this is something that I always say openly, and a lot of people are aware of that. It was not much. It was, I think, about 10,000.
Yeah.
But the way that it changed our operations, or the way that it created spaces for us to grow as an organization is more than 10 million. So I always say that.
Can you explain more what you mean? 10,000 is more than 10 million.
Yeah. So what I mean is that the grant came at a very important period in the life of VISET. We were strengthening our structures, and you needed to travel to go and have meetings with members throughout the country, and this requires money. And during that period, we wanted to locate ourselves and ensure that all the people that were being violated realize that there's this platform that we can engage with and see our issues addressed. So we managed to reach to all those places that we could not be able to reach if we did not have that kind of support, because the grant was very clear, and it was flexible, for lack of a better word. It was so flexible that we managed to do all the things that we felt this is important for the growth. Because it was a point where we wanted to grow the organization. So the flexibility that Trust Africa allowed us during the implementation of that project, I think made us who we are, because we knew the priorities, unlike other grants where you are told what to do. And that grant was so flexible to the extent that we were asked to report after the implementation of the project. So we managed to do all those things that we feel will be important to grow the institution called VISET. So that's why I say we are where we are because of that grant.
So in other words, there was proper alignment between the work that your institution and representing vendors who technically will be in the informal economy would not necessarily be asked now to follow particular strictures and all of that, which is what normally grant making does, is to formalize you, do this and so on. So that proper understanding of the context, but also the nature of the work that you are doing, allowed you space to actually do what mattered the most to you. So let's talk about the subsequent other grants, the other 2, and the one that is in 2024 now.
Okay, so I'll start with the previous ones. So that one we implemented in Gweru and here in Harare. It was called Vendors Initiative for Participation and Accountability, where we were basically creating spaces for dialogue with the local authorities, your elected officials, your councillors, your bureaucrats at all the local authorities. But that was during the time when there were a lot of running battles, arrests, and so on. So we wanted to create spaces where vendors back then can air their views and get responses from local authorities. So basically we wanted to hold them accountable for the actions that they were doing. That was basically it about the VIPA project. Then the subsequent one was on inclusive cities planning and designing. So the project wanted to ensure that when local authorities are planning, they cater for the needs of players in the informal economy. and we implemented this project in collaboration with the Blaue Vendors and Traders Association. It was a 12-month project. We did some research during the implementation of that project. We also made use of the informal economy working groups that I mentioned. We also made some prototypes, some designs of how the planning should be done, and we shared those prototypes with the local authorities that we were working with. That's the Blaue City Council, Harare City Council, and Victoria Falls. Then the current one is on movement building. We are almost done with it. I think we are left with about a month or so. So it's basically building the voice of informal economy workers, given the circumstances that we are in as a country. A lot of people think that thought we were nearing transition in terms of how our country is governed. People seem to be very tired of what is happening in our country. Everyone is doing his own thing. So the purpose of the project is try to bring people together back and be able to talk about how we can improve the governance of our country, how we can participate as vendors, as cross-border traders, and bring all the key players on the table and ensure that our voice is heard.
So I don't know internally whether...
And I think, because we also got support on voter mobilization at some point. I think that was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, though it was just a small package that was meant to mobilize our members to go out and vote. We did that here in Harare and also in Chitungwisa. Then even during COVID-19, I talked about the project that we did to renovate a market in Lusaka. But Trust Africa also came in and gave us, I think it was about 1,000 to buy PPEs, personal protective equipment, and we moved around the country with those. And we were also leveraging on that bigger project that we had with that partner, donating my PPEs to our members who were in the markets. And I thought that was key during that period because you could not work without your face masks and other things. And I think that was also another intervention that was key.
So I was about to ask that, I don't know, because this could be an internal framing within Trust Africa, what your participation has been, besides receiving financial support. Trust Africa has had this thing called the Zimbabwe Citizens Manifesto. What your participation has been in that regard, if you're able to speak to that as well.
We've participated extensively because we were actually part of the organizing, national organizing committee, which was made up of less than 15 organizations, I think, and VISET was part of that. So the Citizens Manifesto, we played a very, very key role in mobilizing even in the communities, even processes leading up to the National People's Convention. I think we were very key in organizing all those processes, and we remain a very key member of that process.
So I would want to go back to Tendai as well for some questions. I suppose one of the things that you said earlier is that the informal sector is also made up of the majority are women, and maybe we speak a bit about the participation of women in the various initiatives that you spoke to, and your reflection on what you have seen over the last 5 or 6 years since you've actually, it's more than that, it's almost 10 years since you established.
So at the beginning, because of the violent nature of because there used to be a lot of abuses in the informal economy, and the women were very skeptical about participating in the processes that we were introducing then. But I think we also realized that there was need to create a standalone platform where women will be able to discuss their issues openly and be able to proffer interventions that suit those challenges that they feel they are facing through the VISET informal economy women's hub. I think we've seen a lot of growth in terms of the participation of women. We have seen policy suggestions being made. There are research interventions. Recently, through another partner, I think Oxfam, it's Oxfam if you mentioned them, we did a research on the effects of corruption on women that are engaged in cross-border trading. And it was VISET that did that research. A lot of recommendations came out, and some of the recommendations were actually adopted by governments like Zambia and Zimbabwe. And it was through the Women's Hub. A lot of trainings they're happening on capacity building, a lot of trainings on how to manage finances, basic business management are happening to women on their own. Issues to do with reproductive health, issues to do with the access to finance. We have created those platforms through the Informal Economy Women's Hub. And just recently, through their innovation, they have also created a podcast, the Voice of the Women podcast. So far, we've done 2 episodes.
Okay.
Yes, and so these are exclusively for women. And I think it's part and parcel of our effort to ensure that the voice of women in the informal economy is amplified. They are the majority, but because of the dynamics that sometimes happen, it's not easy for them to be heard if you don't deliberately create those platforms.
So another sector or segment that lends itself naturally into the informal sector is young people. You did talk about the Graduate Vendors Association or platform. But how are the other young people in general part of your processes? Because as we know, we are also doing some work around the employment of young people in dignified and fulfilling ways. And what we are actually noticing is that there's not much data that tells us the extent to which the non-profit sector employs people, especially young people. But secondly, that generally the majority of young people find themselves in the informal sector. So with this massive work that you are doing in this platform, there seem to be possibilities of a broader engagement with young people. I know that they are probably involved in different ways, but, but maybe let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, they are involved because at the level of our management structure, our board, we have got representative for young people. We have got a representative for women, representative for people with disabilities, and so on. So when we design our interventions, it's deliberate that we are clear in terms of how young people and women are going to be, to be impacted. The issues of access to finance, you cannot talk about that without properly modeling your interventions and ensure that young people are part and parcel of it, because they are the most affected when it comes to lack of finance. And we have done a survey on that. We have also done a survey on the effects of juvenile vending on education, because those are the young people that we are talking about. How are young people leaving school and joining vending because they are trying to survive, they are trying to support the income levels of their families. Then also the issue of drug and substance abuse. We also touch on that because some of our members end up engaging in the selling of these illegal substances. It's not something that we support, but we always ensure that we, as far as possible, we educate our members about the dangers of engaging in that. So young people are involved just the same way that I talked about the Informal Economy Women's Hub. Similar projects are also happening under the Graduate Vendors platform, where there are opportunities capacity development opportunities, access to markets opportunities, and any other opportunities that are there. That platforms then becomes the end.
And then of course finally on that segment is the issue of people with disabilities or people living with disabilities. I'm not so sure which one is politically correct, but
keeps changing.
It keeps changing, So again, we know that the majority of them usually don't find themselves in formal spaces due to all sorts of attitudes, all sorts of practical considerations and discriminations. So literally we find them also trying to make a living in the informal sector. How are they, what has been the experience with your associations and your platforms there?
Yeah, so like I said, they are also represented at our management level, but I think there are a lot of challenges that are affecting that group of our members. Mostly issues to do with access to markets. So the markets that are there right now, they don't cater for the needs of people living with disabilities. If you look at the toilets that are there, they don't even recognize that someone will be, on a wheelchair. And it's a huge challenge. And I think we've tried as an organization to ensure that our local authorities realize the need, because you don't see that being part and parcel of their planning. Sometimes we attend these full council meetings. You raise those issues, there will absolutely be no one to respond because they actually don't see it as a priority. So even when they are doing their budgeting, they don't prioritize that. So we have tried as an organization to ensure that we popularize that, so that key decision makers understands that there are people that are actually employed there, and these are people that are actually looking after families and taking children to school, although they are disabled, but they are doing a lot of work, not only for their families, but even for the development of our economy. So we have tried, and there has been some responses, but more still needs to be done.
So let's go to Tendai, and then we come back and close with the discussion on the role of development partners in this whole space.
So I'm going to take you back to 68,000. That caught my attention. How does that contribute to the long-term sustainability of VISET? Are these paying members? What are they?
Massive question. So when the organization was formed, we appreciated the fact that most of our members are people who are living hand to mouth, and they are going into the street to find that dollar, to be able to buy not a loaf of bread, just to be able to put food on the table. So our interventions back then were anchored on ensuring that we create a safe space for them to be able to operate from. Although we saw an opportunity to self-sustain as an organization through that database, we also wanted to take it through a process where everyone is able to appreciate the importance of doing that, given the work that we were doing then and the work that we were proposing to do. And through the conversation that we were having internally, a lot of our members were actually prepared to pay some form of subscriptions. The only challenge then was that we also needed to have a system for accountability and the transparency internally, and also to ensure that we comply with the laws of the country in terms of getting money and how you are going to use it, auditing and so on. But that process took long for us because of other internal dynamics that were happening in the organization. But I'm happy to say that the beginning of this year we had a review of our strategy, and one key issue that emerged there was the need for VISET to make use of this huge database to sustain the organization. So we have started the process, though there are a few individuals that have already started, making some donations to the organization. We have already started the process of building that system to ensure that whatever send that dollar that we get from our members is managed transparently, and we don't end up abusing the funds of people that we should be ordinarily be supporting. So it's work in progress, but I'm sure before the end of the first quarter of next year, we have the system in place and be able to receive subscriptions for our members.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I'm also intrigued because with the amount of work that you seem to have done and the amounts that you were mentioning from Trust Africa, 10,000, 1,000, and so forth, and you've done massive work, and that work seems to be so beneficial to members. I think my maths is right. Even if you asked members to pay 50 cents a year,
that's a lot.
That's 34,000.
Yes.
50 cents only
Yeah.
a year. That's already 34,000, which would immediately, in a way, contribute. But if you ask them to pay $1, that's already 68,000.
Yeah. That's a lot.
$10.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
So my and that's why I wanted us to end with a conversation on the role of development partners, especially in a context like Zimbabwe, which is continually in some form of transition. Even though it may not be classically termed as a country in transition, but it's continually in a space like that. What role do you see development partners playing? And in this case, we are talking about any form of development partner, including your members, as you have already heard in this discussion, that your members could actually become your main supporter in even your financial base, so to speak. But of course, we operate in an environment where we've got international supporters, we've got local donors. There's African philanthropy growing now. What would your message be if we were to give a message to the funding world around the work that you do?
Yeah. So I mentioned the issue that the 10,000 that I received from that we received from Trust Africa, in terms of how it contributed to be where we are, it's more than 10 million.
10 million.
I said that for a reason. I think I explained that the flexibility that we were allowed made it possible for us to use the resources in a manner that I feel was impactful, and still remains impactful. So I think my suggestion would be to say the development partners need also to understand the different situations where organizations or even individuals find themselves in when they are coming in with whatever support that they are giving. It's very important to understand the context, the different contexts, the different situations that the organizations will be, and allow the organizations to share their stories with you as development partners before you avail even a cent, so that you know when you are giving $2 that you are giving $2 to an institution that deserves $2 because of the kind of work that they are doing. Because you can go and give an institution 12 million when they actually deserve $500. But giving $500 to an institution that actually deserves 2 million. So those conversations before you channel resources are important. Understand what the needs are of the organizations. And it takes both ways. The organizations should also be able to understand what the development player is bringing on the table. To me, I think that would be my biggest feedback to development players.
Anything? Sam, thank you so much for taking the time. Actually, as we close, I'm so intrigued by the 68,000.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's so intriguing because I'm even thinking maybe if there's one ask from any of the development partners, including this ZimAlliance, is to help you actually put that system.
Sure.
And maybe even be more ambitious. We are talking about $1, maybe even go to $100 a year from each of your members. And that $100 would almost give you what? 68 times 100, 68,000. That's what?
680. That's 680 million.
Yeah? It's 6 million. 680,000.
No, it's 68 million.
Not 6.8 million.
6.8 million.
6.8 million.
No, it's a lot.
If each member paid $100 a year, we are looking at 6.8 million US dollars. So that's something that I think, maybe outside the podcast we could talk about, because even people like CVO and others could also be in a way to assist. They've got a community philanthropy work there that we could work on. And additionally, you can work with the other development partners to match what your members are contributing. So even if they can't afford 100, then maybe you could go for 50, and then donors match with another 50. So $50 per member. That could be your fundraising work, and your next proposal could be just around that. And immediately it transforms your work, and that 10,000 that you said was a 10 million is automatically your life going forward. Absolutely.
So that's why we are taking it with we want to be meticulous, because it can easily be manipulated and become you can fall just like that, because these are monies, people's money, and it's not easy to how Zimbabwe it is.
Anyway, thank you so much, Sam, for joining us. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we are wishing you the best going forward. We know the importance of engaging with different structures, in particular, those that actually keep this society going. And we know that the informal sector, vendors and other associations actually do that. So we wish you all the best, and hopefully when we speak again, we'll probably be in another phase of your organization.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. That was Sam from VISET. He is the Executive Director. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.